Wait, he's deaf. Claire whispered to herself, freezing halfway through entering the guest's name into the system. The man standing at the counter looked calm, composed, dressed in a tailored gray suit. His companion, a young woman with a tablet, was signing rapidly to him while speaking aloud. We have a 3 p.m. appointment with the investment committee. This is Mr. Daniel Reeves. Claire's pulse quickened. Daniel Reeves, the philanthropist rumored to be donating millions toward inclusive education. And here she was, the lowest rung on the ladder, in her second week as an intern at Sterling Capital. The translator added, Mr. Reeves prefers direct communication in ASL when possible. Without giving herself time to overthink, Claire lifted her hands and signed. Welcome to Sterling Capital, Mr. Reeves. My name's Claire Bennett. I'll help you get checked in. Mr. Reeves's eyes widened in surprise before breaking into a broad, genuine smile. You sign? That's a first in a place like this. Claire smiled back, still speaking aloud for the translator's sake. My younger brother's deaf. I grew up signing with him. Behind the marble column across the lobby, Ethan Sterling, the 40-year-old CEO, paused mid-step. He'd come down personally to greet Reeves, but stopped when he saw what was unfolding. His employees often handled investors with polished politeness, but this was different, natural, human. Claire's movements were fluid, confident, effortless. The warmth between her and Reeves felt authentic in a way money couldn't buy. I'm sorry we don't have more ASL speakers on staff. Claire signed as she completed the check-in. I'll make sure your meeting today is fully accommodated. May I escort you upstairs? Reeves nodded, visibly at ease. The translator followed them toward the elevators, while Ethan, curious, kept a quiet distance behind. In the elevator, Claire signed, My brother says the hardest part of being deaf isn't silence. It's being ignored. Most people want to help, but never learn how. Reeves nodded thoughtfully. Exactly. Accessibility isn't about charity, it's about respect. I can tell you understand that. By the time they reached the executive floor, the energy around them had shifted. What began as a routine escort now felt like the beginning of something meaningful. Claire ensured Reeves had everything he needed before stepping out quietly. Only then did Ethan enter the room, his presence commanding, but his tone humble. Mr. Reeves, he said, carefully fingerspelling his name with slow, deliberate gestures. I owe you an apology. I was supposed to greet you in the lobby, but I think I witnessed something more valuable instead. The translator smiled as Reeves signed. That young woman, Claire, she made me feel seen before anyone even said a word. That's rare. Ethan nodded. She's an intern, but I have a feeling she just taught the rest of us what real inclusion looks like. Later that afternoon, the meeting concluded with a handshake and a promise. Reeves was ready to move forward with Sterling Capital. When Ethan returned to the lobby, Claire was back at her post, neatly organizing visitor badges. Her stomach knotted when she saw the CEO walking straight toward her. Miss Bennett, he said with quiet authority, could you join me in my office for a moment? Her heart sank. Had she overstepped? Spoken out of turn? She followed him to the top floor, the silence between them stretching taut. Inside his office, Ethan gestured for her to sit. Claire, he began, leaning forward on his desk. I need to ask you something. She braced herself. He smiled. How would you feel about helping us design a company-wide accessibility initiative? How long have you known sign language? Ethan asked, his tone even but his eyes curious. Since I was 5, Claire replied quietly. My brother was born deaf, and my parents decided we'd all learn together. Ethan tilted his head. Then tell me this. Why wasn't that mentioned anywhere on your intern application? Claire hesitated, fingers tracing the edge of her notebook. I didn't think it was relevant to finance or business. It's just part of my family life. Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying her. Claire, I watched you today with Mr. Reeves. You didn't just communicate, you connected. You made him feel respected in a space where he's usually treated as an exception. He tapped a few keys on his computer, pulling up a file. We've been trying to bring Daniel Reeves on board for 2 years. He's one of the biggest private donors in educational accessibility, but he's turned down every proposal. Do you know what he told me after your interaction? Claire shook her head slowly, unsure where this was heading. Ethan's expression softened. He said that in 5 minutes with you, he saw more evidence of our company's integrity than in 2 years of corporate presentations. You didn't treat his deafness as a barrier. You treated him as a person. That's what made the difference. Claire blinked, caught between pride and disbelief. Ethan stood, pacing thoughtfully by the window overlooking the city. We talk about inclusion in every board meeting, but you're the first person who's actually demonstrated it. I want to create a new position, accessibility and inclusion coordinator. I want you to lead it. Her mouth opened, but words came out tangled. Mr. Sterling, I'm just an intern. I haven't even graduated yet. He smiled. Degrees can teach finance. They can't teach empathy. You have a kind of awareness this company desperately needs. We'll handle the corporate part. You bring the human part. The months that followed reshaped Sterling Capital in ways no policy document ever had. Claire transitioned from intern to full-time staff, spearheading initiatives that made the firm genuinely inclusive. She brought in ASL interpreters for key meetings, redesigned client communications with accessibility in mind, and worked with tech teams to ensure the company's platforms were usable for everyone. Daniel Reeves became not just a partner, but a mentor. Together, they launched a joint program funding scholarships for students with disabilities pursuing business and finance. The media praised the partnership, but inside the company, what people noticed most was the cultural shift. Executives greeting clients with sign language basics, managers slowing down to listen more carefully, and boardrooms that finally felt human. For Claire, it was more than a job. It was proof that quiet could still be powerful. Her soft-spoken nature, once seen as hesitation, had become her greatest strength. She didn't dominate rooms, she changed them, one conversation at a time. A year later, standing in the same boardroom where she once nervously handed out water bottles, Claire addressed the executive team. She spoke clearly, confidently, her hands occasionally punctuating her words with signs. What I've learned, she said, is that inclusion isn't a program, it's a mindset. It's not about checking boxes or adding subtitles. It's about believing every person has something valuable to contribute and making sure they have the chance to do it. She glanced toward Ethan, seated near the back. His expression was proud, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Thank you, Claire continued, for seeing something in a shy intern that I didn't see in myself. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Not polite or perfunctory, genuine, because everyone in that room had felt the shift she'd brought. Later that evening, as she packed up her notes, Ethan stopped by her desk. You know, he said, a year ago, I thought leadership was about speaking louder. You taught me it's about listening better. Claire smiled, the quiet confidence that once hid behind her shyness now shining through. Sometimes, the most powerful voices in a company aren't the ones speaking the most. They're the ones making sure everyone else is heard. And in that, Claire Bennett had become a leader not just by title, but by example.